Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic: people who were born deaf but gained hearing later in life. What objects did you expect to make noise? Seems like everyone is answering the reverse. My friend got his hearing at age 6. He swears to this day that he thought flowers would make some sort of noise and that's what attracted bees. Finally a real answer, lol. Edit: how y'all gonna upvote this literal non-comment 16,000 times? Yeah, this is what I opened the thread for. Not me. My good friend who's hard of hearing told me about how before he got hearing aids, he thought that all fridges made a beeping sound, like an alarm, when you open them so the house knows when you're getting something. Turns out his mom just told him that to stop him from eating all their snacks. This is awesome, lol. Parenting hack FTW, at least until the kids got hearing aids. To be fair, my Samsung fridge does have an alarm and it beeps loudly if left open for more than a minute. Obligatory not me, but my godfather/dad's lifelong best friend. He was born with hearing but lost it before age 2 due to some health issues. Went his entire childhood deaf and in his 2020s finally got a hearing aid. At the time, he and his wife were living in the downtown of a large city. Apparently he had it about 2 weeks before he threw it out, saying everything was too loud, he hated the noise and sound, that things were more peaceful without it. 15 years later, he moved out into the country on a few hundred acres of woods. Still, he refused to wear a hearing aid, and kept refusing for the next 10 years. Finally, his wife convinced him to give it a try, and his mind was blown. He couldn't believe how quiet everything was and how much he enjoyed hearing. He finally explained that he thought the noise of the traffic downtown was the wind and that it sounded like that everywhere, all the time. So, for 25+ years, he thought wind sounded like the hundreds of cars driving by. I too wish if I can just turn off my hearing and relax a fucking day without noise. Earplugs are real and they are fabulous. My 3-year-old son is deaf, and we just had a visit this morning from his signing teacher who is also deaf herself. She recently had cochlear implants fitted and while we were talking /signing she said, "I'm sorry, I can't concentrate, I can hear a horrible constant noise, it's not stopped the whole time I've been here." Turned out it was the rain on my conservatory roof. Ironically one of the most pleasant sounds there is. Maybe it sounds different through the implant. Like being underwater makes things sound different. I bet I'd like different styles of music if I was underwater too. Cochlear implants do not replicate noise the way you might think. It sounds garbled and unrealistic. This is why doctors push for infants to receive them, because they will grow up thinking everything is normal and that's just how things sound. People who are deaf for a while and get cochlears have a harder time adjusting. Being deaf isn't a bad thing and as a community they don't want to be seen as disabled. The only thing I cannot do is hear. Yeah, one of my good friends is deaf with cochlear implants and the explanation he gives people, and obviously he had to be explained this by his doctor, is that we sound to him like Donald Duck sounds to people who hear normally. He still relies largely on lip reading in combination with the implants to tell what people are saying cause our voices are so garbled. My cousin was born deaf and went through an operation to recover part of his hearing when he was 12. He sometimes uses hearing aids but can get by without them in general. His family had a bunny, Tupu. Of course he had learned about cows mooing, cats meowing, etc. before he had his surgery. He was very shocked when he came home and greeted his bunny that it made no sound. It took the longest time for him to understand that bunnies are pretty quiet animals in general. He explained he thought all pets were loud. Honestly, I'm hearing and have a hard time with the sounds of rodents and lagomorphs. They're usually not audible to us when they make noise because it's so high-pitched. When I can hear them, it's so high that it just doesn't quite sound real. Exceptions for things like guinea pigs that squeak in a pretty noticeable way. I assumed you made up the word squeak. Google didn't even want to let me search for it. Best thing I've learned today. My old roommate in NYC got implants at, I think he was 25 or 26. He was shocked that the radiators in the house didn't make noise, he could feel them, and was absolutely sure, given their shaking and vibrating from time to time, that they were going to be quite noisy. On the flip side, he was deeply annoyed by the buzz of fluorescent lighting, which he did not expect to make noise. This and old CRT TVs. I have really good high-range hearing, and the old CRTs straight up hurt my ears. Yup. There was a CRT in my homeroom for school back in the day that the teacher would turn on for morning announcements. But it would take a few seconds to actually come alive. Got to the point that when I turned my head to look up at it, everyone else would too. They always asked how I knew, and I always told them I could hear it. My girlfriend is not deaf, but she is hard of hearing, which for her means that she can't hear high-frequency sounds. She recently got hearing aids that amplify the frequencies she can't hear and was shocked to find out that birds and crickets chirp, to the point that she thought the birds were trying to attack her and was horrified that we were surrounded by millions of bugs when I explained what the crickets were. My girlfriend is not deaf, but she is hard of hearing, which for her means that she can't hear high-frequency sounds. She's all about that bass, no treble. If Meghan Trainor did one good thing in her career, it was giving you the opportunity to make that joke. Not me, but when I was in high school a bunch of kids would meet in a nearby no man's land and hang out before school started. I spent most of my mornings, loudly, talking to my almost deaf friend. One day he showed up and said he had a new hearing aid. I didn't have to yell at him to get him to hear me anymore, Yori. Few minutes later he asked what that noise was. I asked which noise, listening and hearing nothing out of the ordinary. I don't know, it's like a weird beeping, almost musical, really bizarre but actually kind of pleasing. Took me a minute to realize my man was hearing bird song for the first time in his life. Was a pretty cool moment. Edit, I now realize this is maybe the opposite of what was being asked. That's a great story. I was born with tons of fluid in my ears and only had very slight hearing at best. When I was 6 months old, I had a surgery that put tubes in my ears to drain the fluid. My mom says when I came home from surgery, I went to my toy box and shook every toy in it to see what sounds they made. Honestly, it wasn't that serious but did lead to some auditory processing issues and I had to see a speech therapist until I was 7. Crazy what a difference 6 months of hearing makes that early on. 2 of my siblings had to get tubes in their ears at a young age. My brother had to see a speech therapist. As kids I had to do a lot of the speaking and translating for him, but now he in his 30s and only speaks with a small impediment. My kids are about a year and a half apart. My youngest has some very minor speech issues for which he is in speech therapy. When the youngest was about 3 and the oldest 4.5, my oldest would translate for us all the time. She just knew what he was saying all the time, even though we had a hard time understanding him. If he was having a particularly tough time asking for what he wanted, he would go get her to help. Sometimes she seemed exasperated for being asked one more time, but she truly made that year so much less frustrating for everyone. I had a child friend that gained hearing and she didn't realize you could control the volume of your voice. So when I whispered to her she said, "Hang on, I think I need to adjust my hearing aid." At first I just thought, oh, it mustn't be working, until I realized what was going on. She whispered to me for about 2 weeks solid just to practice, D. Yes, she also practiced shouting, but we did that in secluded woodlands. That should be like the beginning of a cute but sad movie. Pixar has entered the chat. That's really cute. Question: if you lose your hearing, can you still have Titus? That would be a nightmare to have ringing in your ear without any other sound to mitigate it. Quick Google search brought up. Being hearing impaired doesn't exempt you from these kinds of sounds, unfortunately. Deaf people are more likely to have Titus, in fact. It's thought to be linked to the damage that caused the deafness itself. Oh darn. That's trouble for me as I age. Hate my Titus. I hate you so much right now. I can hear the Titus now. Yeah, me too. Titus is like the real version of the game. If you remember, you lose. Removed. What is the mysterious ticking noise? The kid pondered as a series of wizard-themed puppets crept up behind him. Edit to everyone asking. It was basically about a deaf kid who got an implant and was annoyed by a random ticking noise, which was the ticking of a clock. Snape, Severus Snape. Not personally, but one of my friends basically said, how the fuck do you people stand all this noise? You learn to filter. I'm half deaf. In crowded and noisy places it's gonna be weird for me if you yell from a distance. No triangulation. My brother can't filter out noise and refuses to learn how. He'll wake up to the soft piano music of my other brother practicing at night, downstairs, through a closed door, and tell him he's being too loud. Well, after the cochlear implant, I started hearing a lot of things that I never knew existed, but here are a few things I thought would make a noise, but nope. Edit to clarify this. I expected the light bulbs to hiss or flickering sound when you turn them on. I was so disappointed. I thought you could hear your eyes close, blink, but there is no sound when you close your eyelids. No whoosh. You know how wind makes a noise going through trees. I thought it would make more noises going through hair. Nope. Now I could hear soft sounds, but I still get spooked when I see a bug crawling, and I don't hear it. They don't make a noise. At all. Pooping does not make a sound, only the splash into the toilet. I thought the body makes a noise to push it out. I was disappointed. Someone who answered the question the right way around, haha. Also something semi-related to one of them, I remember someone once saying when they were a kid, lying in bed, they kept hearing this sort of scraping sound, but when they sat up it stopped. They were really freaked out, thinking it was some monster somewhere. Turned out it was her eyelashes brushing against her pillow every time she blinked.